This is a Guide Your Light network production, creating podcasts with purpose.
Aging is inevitable, and this is a reality. But strength and capacity is a responsibility. And you do not get strong by mistake. You don't get strong by chance. You get strong because it is a physical choice, and it's a mental choice.
Welcome to the Things You Can't Unhear podcast. I'm your host, Maritza Barone. Get ready to hear moments that will help you to see the world differently and inspire you to become the happiest, healthiest, and kindest version of you. Today's conversation is with Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, physician, researcher, and founder of the Muscle-Centric Medicine movement. She has dedicated her career to redefining what healthy aging really means by putting one often overlooked organ at the center of it all, skeletal muscle. Recorded live at the Wanderlust Wellspring Biohacking Summit, this episode dives into why building and maintaining muscle isn't just about aesthetics. It's about the foundation of longevity, metabolic health, and bouncing back with resilience when we need it the most. Dr. Lyon shares how her research into geriatric and nutritional sciences led her to see the body differently, how muscle becomes the organ of longevity, and why age, diet, and gender-based myths keep us stuck in endless cycles of losing weight rather than gaining strength. We talk protein thresholds, muscular health for menopause, the risk of ignoring muscle decline, and the hope of reclaiming strength at any age. Whether you're 25 or 75, this conversation will shift how you see your body, your strength, and your future. Make sure you share your biggest takeaways with me from this episode. If you're listening on Spotify or watching on YouTube, leave a comment there or message us on Instagram. All the links are in the bio. Let's go. Gabrielle Lyon, Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, welcome to the Things You Can't Unhear podcast live from Wellspring Wanderlust.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm going to see if I can sit back and see if my feet dangle.
Huge chairs for such little women. We're both probably 5 foot something, so we may be sinking in these chairs a little bit. But it's been an amazing weekend so far here at Wanderlust, and I think there's been a bit of a debate that I've seen on stage of what is the organ of longevity? Which one is the key? And I know which one you're spruiking, but I want to know how it all started for you and when you realised that the muscle, that tissue, was the key.
Well, first of all, according to me, muscle is the organ of longevity. If you were to ask my husband, who is a urologist, he would say something else is the organ of longevity, the male genitalia. And I think, or Dave over here, I think what's really important to understand is skeletal muscle in and of itself is an organ system. Why does that matter? Because we are all chasing health and wellness. But it doesn't matter if you're climbing the ladder if it's against the wrong wall. And what do I mean by that? I mean that if we recognize and orient ourselves to skeletal muscle as the only organ system that we can voluntarily control, then we have agency as to how we age. And where I had this, we're talking about aha moments, where I had that moment was actually in fellowship. So I did my fellowship in geriatrics and nutritional sciences. And geriatrics is individuals over the age of 65. And I have to tell you, I didn't want to do it. The deal was, in order for me to get additional nutrition training, because I had done my undergraduate in nutritional sciences, was that I had to compromise. I had to get funding so that I could do research. And I was working on a project that was looking at the interface between body composition and brain function. And I had just, it was, 30 participants. And this one participant, she was in her mid-50s. She was a mother of 3, and I just totally fell in love with her. She was amazing. And I imaged her brain in her mid-50s, and her brain looked like the beginning of an Alzheimer's brain. And she wasn't symptomatic yet, and I knew what was in store for her. And I felt like we had failed her. We had failed her as a medical system with our recommendations. We had just failed her. And I couldn't unsee it, and I couldn't rectify what I was seeing and what we were doing about it. So I went to my colleagues and I'm like, hey, she's in her mid-50s. And they were like, yeah, so? Well, what are we gonna do about it? And the standard recommendation was the standard recommendation of this kind of exercise and this kind of nutrition program. And it wasn't good enough, and nobody had an answer. And there was just this moment where I realized that it wasn't an obesity problem, that she had gained and lost the same 20 pounds or 30 pounds. And each time she became more metabolically unhealthy. And it was really in that moment that I couldn't just not do anything about it. And that's where we are today.
And the rest is history. And the fact that you took action on that and you continue to take action, it's such inspired action, is just so inspiring to see. I know many of us have probably walked the hallways of nursing homes and seen people age in with really heartbreaking conditions. I've seen great grandparents and grandparents have that, that pathway. None of us want to be there, do we? No. So what can we do? What are some steps that we can take to make sure we don't end up in that boat? And it's never too late to start, right?
It's never too late to start. So I'm going to say this both from a philosophical perspective and then from an action perspective. And there seems to be this disconnection between knowing what to do and actually taking action. And people don't act when they're interested. If you're just interested and you're casually involved in something, you don't take action.
It's the need and the want, right? Yeah.
Right. But when you are educated and inspired, there is the ability to then take the next right step. And we think about there's the future self and there's the current self. And we have to recognize that we are all, God willing, going down this path. And so the rest of you've got to train hard and you have to eat protein and you have to follow Dave's protocol or whatever it is, you have to take the next right action. And it's to condense the future self with the current self. And just from a practical standpoint, is Alzheimer's, dementia primarily is type 3 diabetes of the brain. Insulin resistance in the body is no different than insulin resistance in the brain. And what you do for your muscle is what you do for your brain. And then there's a whole host of things. For example, how you train affects brain volume. If you've got some like jacked people in the front, if you are training fast with speed and velocity, you think faster. It's not this disconnected way. Yes, I'm talking about you, brother. Jacked.
I love the idea that where you bring up survivability and recoverability, if that's a word. We need to prepare ourselves and build ourselves up to a certain level so that if things...
When?
When? Because we're all aging. That's right.
So no one's getting out of here alive.
That's one.
Unless there's something that I don't know about, it's not going to happen.
So yeah, when things do happen, when we do age to a certain period, we've done everything in our power to do that. And talk to me about survivability a little bit. Yeah. It's an interesting concept.
Aging is inevitable, and this is a reality. But strength and capacity is a responsibility. And you do not get strong by mistake. You don't get strong by chance. You get strong because it is a physical choice, and it's a mental choice. You pull the lever of skeletal muscle for this bidirectional relationship of both physical and mental strength. Because ultimately, your ability to survive, which is, again, it's to live, is dependent on your physical architecture, your house. With that being said, there's nothing more important than building up your body. No doctor ever said, you know what, you have too much muscle. You need to lose that. Said no doctor ever. No. And in fact, your ability to survive against all-cause mortality, anything, is going to be better with the more healthy muscle you have.
My uncle has had a kidney transplant and he has advice now. He's been through an organ transplant. And he said to me, Maritza, make sure you always have an extra couple of kilos on in case you get sick, because when you get sick and if you end up in hospital, you tend to lose a lot of weight. And he'd become quite thin, and so he was reflecting back on that. Let's talk about weight or fat versus muscle. He probably meant muscle, didn't he? Do you think?
Yeah, but I would still say that, it's interesting because that's a very unique situation. And again, what we see with aging and disease, more weight is better because there's this highly catabolic nature. But what's really fascinating is that skeletal muscle is your body armor. The reality is the body pulls from muscle tissue when things go off track. You rebuild and repair the only protein reservoir, the main protein reservoir, is skeletal muscle. And understanding that it is your protection, it's the best investment you will make. There's financial investments, but none of that matters if you don't have your health.
That's very true. And I've heard you say it's better to gain fat than lose muscle.
It's more detrimental. So the evidence would suggest, and this actually came out of Davis, that it's more detrimental to lose muscle than it is to gain body fat. The loss of skeletal muscle is more dangerous than the gain of body fat. And that's a whole paradigm shift. Because again, we're hyper-focused on obesity and we're hyper-focused on fat. And honestly, I think it's irrelevant. I don't even think it matters. Body fat percentage is, again, it's the obvious, so it's the thing that we chose to focus on. But I don't think that it's body fat percentage that really matters. It's actually the quality of the muscle tissue and the intermuscular adipose tissue. And I am telling you, in the next 5 years, we're going to, again, reorient ourselves. It might take a little bit longer because we have all these markers of, 30% body fat, then these types of problems happen. But we haven't looked at how that relates to the intermuscular adipose tissue. So it's the fat within muscle that drives probably primarily metabolic disease. And that's not something really discussed yet.
I love how you explain it in such simple terms so we can understand without a medical background. But how do we know if we have an issue with our muscle health? How do we know? Is it can't open the peanut butter jar?
It's tricky because it's not something you feel. You might say I feel more tired because skeletal muscle at 40% plus, this guy's probably 50% body of your body weight muscle has mitochondria. And again, it's the part that you can control, but you're not going to necessarily feel when your muscles are unhealthy. How you might see it on blood work is you might see higher levels of glucose, higher levels of insulin, higher levels of triglycerides, essentially metabolic syndrome. Metabolic syndrome, from my perspective, is not a disease of obesity. Metabolic syndrome is an impairment in skeletal muscle mass, and that's what we're seeing. So that is the clinical picture. And then from a strength perspective, strength is relative. I was talking to Dave, who's here, for those of you guys who are just listening or watching, not you guys in the room, but Dave Asprey's over here. And he was the first person I told about National Muscle Health Month, which is going to be March. And that's amazing. So we have Movember, and also now we have Mo Muscle. But the question becomes, what is a recommendation that we can make? And I've been going over and over this in my head. Should we say for National Muscle Health Month, everybody should be able to do 10 pull-ups or 10 push-ups or 10 air squats? I have no idea because we don't really have a collective physical movement protocol. We know that people should do 150 minutes and 2 days a week of resistance training. But there are real gaps in our understanding of ways of putting out the information.
There's such limitations, I suppose, and to make it so general because every
It's difficult.
body type is so different.
It's very difficult. So I haven't solved that yet.
Yeah, that's a hard one.
But it's happening.
Watch this space.
It's happening.
Amazing. Let's talk about male bodies versus female bodies. I've heard you talk about the male muscle, the erectile dysfunction. Yes. And I heard a stat that you shared earlier that was quite alarming. Can you share that with us?
40% of men by the age of 40 are going to have erectile dysfunction.
Wow.
50% of men by 50% will have erectile dysfunction.
And I don't even want to ask what happens in the 60s.
Yeah, well, probably it's 60%. So it goes up. Now, you might think that that is isolated to male genitalia. So what we did is I was senior author on a paper that myself and my colleagues at Baylor published, and it showed the relationship between healthy skeletal muscle, muscle mass and strength, and improved erectile function. And for example, let me kind of frame this up. If sarcopenia, which is a decrease in muscle mass and function, which we think of as a disease of aging, which by the way it's not, but we'll just say that it is, that those that had healthy skeletal muscle had less erectile dysfunction, 73% versus 43%.
This is great news. My husband trains a lot.
And now he's going to train even more. Doing those push-ups, right? Because up is the good direction.
It's absolutely fascinating. Wow.
And here's why. When you're training muscle, you are improving blood flow. You are also improving vasodilation and nitric oxide. And that becomes really important for erectile function. So muscle, again, is the lever that you pull for all the things that one would want for optimal living.
The trends are showing that muscle is the key to longevity.
Yeah, it is the organ of longevity. So we can fight with the urologist all day long, but it's muscle.
And all right, let's switch to women now. There's such a big, wide conversation around muscle and building muscle during menopause and perimenopause. I love that this conversation is coming up a lot and it's spreading wider and wider.
And what I'm going to say might be a little controversial. Right now, to our knowledge, there is not a difference between men and women in terms of training and muscle. And listen, we've got some very fit women in this room right now. What is good for one person is good for the other person. It is all about having a good program. And it's not female, male, it's really individuality. So for example, some of these women, you guys have probably been training your whole life. They look great for 25. You see? And it's not, and we, in one hand, I think it really overcomplicates things. And again, you cannot take just mechanistic data and say, well, this female training is different than male training. We are all the same species, last time I checked. And what is good for muscle health for a woman or a man, it's what is good for human muscle health. And I think that that's really important to understand.
I totally appreciate that is definitely true. But when it comes to menopause especially, because that's something that men don't experience.
They do. They get menopause.
Well, yeah, they do.
Just kidding. They don't. Actually, men can. So I did my dad's blood work. Right. And, because he just bothers me all the time about it. He's like, oh, come on, we got to do my blood work. I live in Ecuador. I can't. So we did his blood work, and his testosterone level of like 800. And his free testosterone is the equivalent. It's very high. And the reality is, although his sex hormone binding globulin will increase, which is something that binds hormones, so hormones are like children, they can't go anywhere alone. Men do not necessarily have to have a decrease in hormones. But women, it's kind of like Christmas and tax day and, New Year's, it's coming no matter what. But the data would suggest that the decline in skeletal muscle mass, say around 50, in the 50s, is not dissimilar to just aging in general. It's not particularly menopause.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting, because I hadn't heard anyone say that before. But it can't be harmful for us to still build our muscle.
Well, we know it's coming, right? We know it's coming. And so typically, as hormones decline, we see that with the decline in estrogen, people do less spontaneous activity. And that's, something that one could consider. But good foundational strength habits are good foundational strength habits. Whether a woman is going through menopause or not, again, it really tracks with aging.
Love that. So if we're trying to support our muscle health and build muscle, let's talk about diet a little bit and how we can bring that into our world so that we can empower the muscles to work at their best. Carbs versus protein conversation, I suppose.
Yes, and before we start and touch on that, I have to say that the biggest driver of muscle and muscle hypertrophy is the stimulation. If, and I hate to say, if you're gonna pick diet or exercise, what would you pick? We know resistance training, and we know hard training. And again, hard training can be, look very different. It doesn't just have to be heavy. It could be you increase volume. Just ways of changing the stimulus is gonna be much more impactful from a whole body perspective than diet alone.
So 80-20 rule out.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the harder you train, the more flexibility you have in your nutritional space. And so my mentor, Dr. Donald Lehman, here I'm in Australia and I'm calling him, I'm just trying to put together these pieces, and I'm gonna tell you why. So why do we need protein? We need protein for all protein turnover in the body. And we require around 250 to 300 grams a day. We don't eat that much. That means our body recycles these amino acids. And when we are aging, and I say that cautiously because what's that number? Our muscle becomes less efficient, our whole body mechanism of protein turnover. It's not just our muscle, it's everything. And so we do require essential amino acids, and that's really why we're eating protein. We're eating protein because we need these essential amino acids to build our body. There is no way around it. But when we talk about protein, we talk about it like it's one thing. It's 20 different amino acids, all of which do different things. You have threonine for mucin production. You have leucine for muscle stimulation. But if you look at the back of a label, it just says protein. And that's very misleading. And why do I bring that up? Because I think that, the macro level is we need protein, but we have to recognize that it's for all of these amino acids do various things. And when we think about then designing a diet, we think about how much protein do we need for all of these mechanisms, and the minimum, the low floor would be 100 grams. That's the lowest floor. And also, Dave's gonna love this because he likes a little controversy, is that if you are eating less than 30% from animal-based sources, you are not gonna meet the RDA for these micronutrients. So if you are eating less than 30% from animal products, you will not meet the RDA of zinc, selenium, B12, all of these other micronutrients.
And you can't supplement?
You can. But again, if we know that 74% of the population or Americans, I know we're not in America, are not exercising, and now we're going to theoretically ask them to supplement, it's not going to happen. And we talk about all these things as if, oh, they're going to do the keto diet and they're going to do the carnivore. No, they're not. No, they're not. We have to really help them design a plan that they are going to execute based on the things that we know that people are doing.
So for anyone listening, so I know people who don't exercise. You probably know.
I don't know anyone that doesn't exercise.
You're probably not in your world, but
they're not my friends. You guys better be doing push-ups. It's not allowed in our family or friends.
There's definitely people listening who don't exercise, and they may be thinking, I've got to start. It's a non-negotiable.
And you know what? Expect the resistance.
There's definitely resistance. Even for people who train every day, there's going to be resistance.
I bitch about every Monday. I know that I have to meet my trainer. I start bitching about it Sunday night. I'm already bitching about it.
It hurts, but it's good. No one's ever regretted a workout, that's for sure.
I don't know. I do usually, but I still do it. But I do it. Exactly. So you can bitch about it all you want.
What's the starting point for them? Where can they
understand your resistance and do it anyway?
What exercise can they start off doing if they've never exercised before?
Anything. Yeah, I mean, I hate that advice, but I've been schooled enough. But here's what I would say: pick one thing. It doesn't have to be perfect. So for me, I love doing push-ups and I love doing pull-ups. I don't know, it's fun. That's how my husband, our first date was pull-ups. But you know what? It was a bummer because I was very proud. I was doing 100 pull-ups a day. So 10 sets of 10. Dead hang, very proud of myself. And then I go on a date with my husband and he was like, you're doing so great, like, good job. And then he straps on a kit of like 50 pounds and he's just repping them out.
Trying to outdo each other?
No, he really was so proud of me. And you marry a Navy SEAL, you're never good at anything physical again, ever. It's just like, it kind of ruined the mood, but fine. It wasn't perfect, but I did beat him swimming once. He said that he had a cramp in his calf. I beat him. That was a big moment.
Haven't forgotten it. Gabrielle, thank you for, of course, thank you for everything you've shared today. I want to know a little bit about you and sort of your view of the world. I love asking people this question because I think it's really important to delve into the mindset of someone like you who has dedicated their life to helping other people. But just from where you sit, how do you view the world?
I view it like this, that we all have a responsibility, and our family and our unit believes being of service, and that a life well lived is a life of service.
How beautiful. And my final question to you, based on the title of this podcast, Things You Can't Unhear. Has there ever been a moment in your life where you heard something that stopped you in your tracks and made you see things a little differently, made you a little inspired to do something else?
Many things, but I will share with you one thing that I say over and over again that I think is meaningful and valuable to me. I'm in control of my actions. I'm in control of my emotions. And that's it. And I'm in control of my thoughts, period. So if something isn't going right or there's any of these other things, you are absolutely responsible and in control.
We don't have to react to life, right? We can co-create.
You could, but it's your choice.
Exactly. Thank you, Gabrielle Lyon, for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I have absolutely loved sharing. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the show. What did you think? And what did you feel? Let us know by leaving me a message on the Things You Can't Unhear Instagram community page. And if you can, give us some ratings love on your favourite listening platform.